Before we begin, I have to warn you. What you're about to hear isn't the polished version of Carl Jung that most people are comfortable quoting. It's the truth he left for men about male desire, and it was too painful for most to face. Stay with me, because the truth waiting at the end will make you see your own desire and its cost in a way you've never dared to before. Jung understood something that modern men keep running from. Desire is not just a pull towards someone. It's a force that shapes your choices, your discipline, and your sense of self, whether you realize it or not. And when that desire is unexamined, it doesn't just pull you toward women, it pulls you away from yourself. I've lived this truth. I've been in seasons of my life where every decision, every plan, every ounce of my energy was subtly shaped by what I wanted from a woman. I didn't think I was dependent, but every choice I made was bending in her direction. Jung saw this as the most dangerous form of desire, not because women are dangerous, but because unexamined desire can turn a man's entire life into a reaction. And here's where his message gets uncomfortable. Male desire, left unconscious, will almost always lead a man to abandon something important. Sometimes it's his boundaries. Sometimes it's his mission. Sometimes it's the quiet, steady self-respect he doesn't even notice leaving until it's gone. Jung wasn't calling for men to suppress their desire. He was calling for them to integrate it. That means you don't run from it. You don't let it control you. You hold it inside of you without letting it decide the course of your life. Because I've seen what happens when men don't. They over-pursue. They over-invest. They confuse the rush of desire with the stability of love. And each time they do, they lose more of the quiet masculine strength that made them attractive in the first place. Jung's message is painful because it points the finger back at us. It's not about blaming women for how they respond. It's about asking why we are so quick to reshape ourselves for a moment of connection. And the truth is this: until you can hold your desire without losing yourself in it, you will always be pulled off center. That's the message Jung left, not to shame you, but to remind you that desire can either be a force you master or a chain you never see tightening until it's too late. Here's the first mistake men make, and it's the one Jung saw as the most dangerous. Men believe that their desire is private. They think as long as they keep it to themselves, it doesn't shape how they move. But I've lived it. I've been in rooms where I thought I was acting logically, and then realized my decisions were bending toward what I wanted from a woman in that space. No one had to say it. No one had to notice. But my direction had shifted. This is the frame breaker most men never see. Desire doesn't need to be spoken to shape you. It only needs to remain unconscious. That's what Jung meant when he said, "What remains unconscious will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Evolutionary psychology explains part of this. Male desire is rooted in survival wiring. It's not designed to stay neutral. It's designed to pull your focus, your attention, and your energy toward connection. That drive isn't bad, it's nature. But when a man is blind to it, he starts to bend his life around it without realizing it. This is why Jung saw desire as a force that must be integrated, because unchecked, it makes a man reactive instead of grounded. And here's the painful part. It doesn't matter how strong you think your self-control is. If you haven't brought your desire into consciousness, it will leak into your decisions. I've seen this happen to men who swore they'd never lose their focus. Slowly, they adjusted their schedule to be available for her. They shifted their priorities to keep her attention. They softened their edges to avoid losing her. They didn't even realize how much of their life had been redrawn by desire until they looked back months or years later. Jung's warning was simple. You don't master your desire by ignoring it. You master it by knowing exactly how it moves you. That means being brutally honest about when your boundaries start bending. It means noticing when your time, energy, and standards shift toward a woman without you making a conscious decision to do so. This is where most men fail. They think desire is just a feeling, but it's also a map. And if you're not the one reading it, it will quietly lead you to places you never planned to go. That's why Jung's message still stings today, because he wasn't telling men to suppress themselves. He was telling them to stop living as if they aren't being pulled by forces they refuse to name. Here's the second mistake men make, and it's the one that gets the most backlash when I say it. Men believe that all women respond the same way to their desire. They assume that if their interest is genuine, it will be respected. But Jung's message was clear. Desire that you cannot hold consciously will always be visible, even when you think you're hiding it. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The wrong women will sense that and exploit it. I've seen this in my own life. When a man's desire is uncontrolled, his boundaries are already soft. A toxic woman doesn't have to manipulate aggressively. She just has to lean into the space where his discipline gives way. She can feel when his attention shifts to her. She can sense when his actions start to be shaped by her reactions. And she learns exactly how far she can pull him before he notices what's happening. That's why Jung's warning was so sharp. He wasn't telling men to be paranoid about women. He was telling them to stop walking into relationships blind to their own weakness. I've watched strong men who held themselves like leaders, slowly reshaped because they didn't notice how their desire was being used against them. They thought they were just showing interest, but interest without control is surrender. And here's where it gets dangerous. A toxic woman doesn't always want to win your commitment. Sometimes she just wants to see how far you will bend. Sometimes her respect is tied directly to whether or not you can resist the pull she knows she has over other men. This is where so many men get trapped. They think they're making sacrifices for connection, but what they're really doing is proving that their self-control is negotiable. And once a toxic woman sees that, the dynamic changes. She will test you more. She will push harder. She will pull you further away from the man you were when she met you. This is why Jung's message was so painful, because it forces men to admit that the danger isn't only in the woman. The danger is in their own inability to hold their desire without being consumed by it. And that's what makes this so hard to hear, because it's easier to blame the other person than to admit that you walked yourself to the edge. The truth? A man who can hold his desire calmly cannot be controlled by anyone. A man who cannot will always find himself shaped by someone else's will. Jung's warning about male desire wasn't meant to make men shut down or disconnect. It was meant to make them capable of holding it without losing themselves. This is where most men go wrong. They hear control your desire and think it means bury it. I made that mistake myself. For a while, I thought the safest way to stay unshakable was to avoid letting myself feel anything fully. I became cold. I distanced myself. And while I thought I was being strong, I was actually avoiding the work. Because strength isn't the absence of desire. Strength is being able to stand in it without being moved off your ground. That's the heart of masculine versus feminine conflict. The feminine can feel when a man's energy shifts because of her presence. The masculine shows his stability by not collapsing under it. This doesn't mean ignoring her. It means not reshaping yourself every time you feel the pull of attraction. Here's what I learned. Desire is not the enemy. Reacting to desire without awareness is. This is where emotional tone mastery comes in. A man who has mastered his tone can hold attraction, intimacy, and tension without turning into someone he's not. It comes down to a few key habits I've lived by. Stay calm in the body. Desire is energy. If you can't stay grounded, it takes over. Respond from clarity. Don't speak from impulse. Desire can cloud words if you let it. Offer warmth without chasing. Presence is not the same as pursuit. Set boundaries without hostility. Desire doesn't override your standards. And to make this actionable, here are 5 tools I've used to master my own desire. 1. The pause. Feel the pull, but don't move instantly. Breathe. Ground yourself before acting. 2. The redirect. When desire wants to pull you off track, bring the focus back to your purpose. 3. The boundary reminder. Know what you will and will not compromise on before desire tests you. 4. the scarcity anchor. Live in a way where your time and attention are valuable, regardless of who is in your life. 5. The consistency signal. Your standards don't fluctuate based on how strong your desire feels in the moment. These aren't tricks. They are the disciplines that turn desire from a force that controls you into a force you control. And this is why Jung's message matters. A man who can stand in his own desire without being pulled by it is a man who cannot be broken by anyone. Jung didn't leave his message about male desire to shame men. He left it to free them. And here's the part that makes this truth so painful and so powerful. Desire isn't the problem. Your relationship to it is. I've seen men destroy themselves not because they felt too much, but because they never learned how to stand in what they felt without collapsing into it. Jung's warning was simple. When you don't integrate your desire, it integrates you. It shapes you from the shadows, and you don't even realize it until you've built a life around impulses you didn't choose consciously. I've lived this. I've watched myself bend for approval, soften my standards, and let my mission drift, all because I didn't see how my desire was directing my choices. And I've also lived the opposite, holding my desire without letting it consume me. That's the difference between a man who is free and a man who is quietly controlled. The truth Jung wanted men to hear is this: you don't master your desire by avoiding women. You master it by standing in your life so firmly that no woman can pull you off your ground. Desire will always be there. But when you've brought it into the light, it can't move you without your consent. And that's when you become the man who can't be broken. If this shifted something in you, like the video to anchor it. Subscribe if you're done fighting the wrong way and ready to lead with calm strength. And if you know a man who needs to hear this, send it to him. This is Depthoria, for men who choose emotional intelligence over chaos. We'll see you in the next depth.